Are pros ruining Apex Legends? This topic has been coming up a long time in the community, and I decided to bring in the famous Twitter complainer PVPx to discuss it. And just PVPx, tell me, why are you the way that you are?
I mean, partially just because it's fun, it's entertaining, but like to be honest, I really do love to see change, and I love to get my feedback on the game because I ultimately want it to become the best version of itself. So I'd rather not just sit back and just play the game. That's it. I want to contribute to the success of the game in the long term.
Yeah, because you're a competitive coach, right?
Yes.
For Cloud9.
Previous player, now coach.
And how did you go? How it go when you were a player? I actually don't remember, if I'm going to be honest. I know Cloud9 currently is doing pretty well for themselves, but
yeah, long story short. Basically, signed to C9 right when Apex released. Played kill races for like 8 months or something. Right. Eventually, stopped competing because there was no customs, and then came back, made my own team. I was still under C9, but it wasn't like under the C9 banner. My team. We played the ALGS tourneys when they first started, and I qualified for the first LAN for ALGS, and then COVID hit and the tourney got canceled, and I stepped away, stopped competing, and eventually came back to pick up a team for C9 as a coach for the roster.
Right. I have to ask about the tourney because I think that situation is so interesting. Were you in Texas? Because they flew. I think some teams flew out. They were really waiting to.
Yeah, so basically the tourney got canceled like within a week of it supposed to be happening. And we didn't know what was going to happen with because all the hotels were booked, all the flights were booked, all of that. People had already flown in early to boot camp beforehand, like from Europe and stuff. Luckily, I am from Florida, so it's really close. It wasn't that bad. So I ended up actually just going and using my ticket in my hotel with my girlfriend, and we just kind of visited the area for a little bit. Because we didn't want to just waste our money. Like I wasn't just gonna not use my plane ticket. And it turns out that EA, like afterwards, they ended up refunding players' tickets. But it wasn't like, I don't think they covered hotel, and they didn't cover like your guests. If you had any, like if my girlfriend's ticket, they wouldn't have covered that. So yeah, I just ended up just using it just to visit, just so I didn't waste my money.
Nice, ended up being for the better. I do not know if that hunk got picked up. Probably did. So yeah, so the reason I brought you in today, as I mentioned in the quick intro there, is that there's a few content creators out there, I'm not going to name names, and there's a lot of players that seem to think that pros are ruining the game. And I just wanted to kind of go over, I know you're very vocal about this on Twitter, and you usually have rebuttals to people, when they say, oh, pros are ruining the game and this and that. And I was thinking, do you happen to know what types of things pros are claimed to be ruining?
Well, I would first want to start by saying that Apex on release was a casual game, and it developed over time very progressively into a competitive game to what it is today. So with that change, there has to be a lot of things that need to be, changed to make it more competitive, right? One very clear thing is the rank system. That's like a huge topic of discussion. And there's also like a lot of little things like golden knockdown self-revives, which is like a huge thing that I would say casuals in general didn't hate, and they hated that pros hated that. And I think after like you collect your thoughts on everything, the best way that you can go about things in this game is to try to separate competitive and casual modes as much as possible and not try to intertwine them. But unfortunately, Apex, I think they look at their ranked system as like a casual mix, so it's very difficult to go about that balancing. So things like Kraber and Golden Knockdown, they have to try to find this like middle ground between the two communities, and unfortunately that leads to a lot of pros ruined Apex accusations, and it's not ultimately what pros want to do. They would rather have separation, but like, what can you do? You know what I mean? Like, there shouldn't be self-revive abilities in this game. And that's a whole 1 hour rant I could get into, but thank God that is gone. But that's
that was a whole
big thing. Yeah.
I remember I made a video about it, and I got so much like backlash for that. Yeah. But I think, but there's more than that, though. I think that because you say pros want separation, but that's kind of, I think the idea of separation was out there when there was the talks of Golden Knockdown was going around. But I feel like at the very start, for a long time, there wasn't real separation talks. Maybe the first year or two of the game. Maybe pros were trying to approach the, okay, everything has to be balanced the same way idea. And didn't realize that Respawn was leaning towards the casual side with it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a really, like, I guess for Respawn, it's like such a hard balancing point because, like, Kraber is another thing that we could talk about, how they, like, what we really wanted was just no Kraber in competitive mode, like no ALGS. Like, even if it stayed in ranked, it wasn't the end of the world. But instead, Respawn decided to just nerf the one-shot capability of it. And I know casuals hated that change because it's like such a huge gun. I didn't hate the change. I was happy to see it, to be honest. But I would have been happy with them just, taking it out of ALGS as well. So there's that.
We did have a split. Is that the word I'd use? I guess I'll use the word split because we had the golden knockdown for a while. The solution that it did do was that they just took it out of competitive.
Yep, I believe
period.
It was the one of two items in Apex history that they removed from competitive. It was that and heat shields. So I think that was the only two.
Heat shield. Yeah,
heat shields is still not in competitive today.
I think that's a good change. I think it shouldn't be ranked, but that's a whole.
Yeah,
that's almost a whole different discussion, isn't it? But I think because personally, from what I saw of the Kraber, is right now it's really weird. Like it's RNG, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like you have. It's still one shots, but it depends. Like the RNG has fallen on the person using the Kraber. Like you can hit your headshot, but that could be a 210 headshot, and they're just gonna walk it off with a red armor and a
another change I was like really pushing for with the Kraber was them adding a laser sight. So when someone's scoping in, at least there's some type of counterplay. You like know they have a Kraber, or if someone's like aiming at you from behind, and you're not just playing a one life BR game where you just get silent headshot and you're just out. That's it. And it was so interesting because they added that laser sight to Vantage's ultimate, like a new character release, and and it's already in the game from Rampart as well, right? So it's like, I mean, why did they just go about that change? Like that would have been so good because there's at least a little bit of counterplay. Unfortunately, not a lot, but it helps.
I do think that personally, from what I've seen from Vantage, is that when you have the laser sight. Like, I'm just gonna throw, like, a spanner in the works here. The laser sight, like, adds space. Like, you could theoretically hold a Kraber and, like, just hold down an entire area with it. Yeah. But you don't actually shoot.
100%, yeah.
You gotta get the same jump.
I think that's a big thing that casual players don't understand is that there's passive value. So, a best way to look at things in, like, competitive or, like, in games in general is you look at the value of things. And different things can have active value or passive value. Like an active value of Kraber is you hit someone in the head and they died and GG's. Passive value is that you have the Kraber, the other team knows you have the Kraber, and they can't look at you because at any point in time, you could get shot in the head and you're dead. And there's nothing that you could do about it. So the passive value of Kraber in competitive was just insane. You could just not even look at teams because like, okay, at any point in time, he might hit a headshot and my game is ruined. And that's the only item in Apex that could do that.
Yeah. I think that's... Yeah, you still can do it. It's just, again, it feels a bit random almost.
Craft your helmets. Whenever purple helmet's in the crafter, craft your helmets.
Yeah, at least it has a use now.
Yeah.
I was going to say also, because I Googled on this because I don't remember. I asked you and I realized you might not actually know what the casuals are saying all the time. So I found one Reddit thread. That's where you find all the information nowadays. We're talking about the Caustic change, which I completely forgot about. Because, like, what was this, a year ago? 10th of March 21.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there was, like, a pretty massive Caustic change around the time. I remember him being super oppressive for a while, and the pros were advocating for a nerf.
Was it the one where it allowed teammates to go, like, not get slowed by the gas?
I think this one was...
Because I know Caustic.
Well, I don't know why I'm reading the comments, because there's nothing to learn from reading Reddit comments. But I think it has to do with shooting the bottom of the barrels, I think. Or maybe I know they nerfed the gas damage.
Yeah, Caustic has gone through a lot of different changes. But
for sure.
The barrels being destroyed was a huge change that I definitely pushed for. Because there was just no counterplay. Like, Caustic has 6 traps that he can put on the ground, and then he could have 3 more stored up, and like the duration of them were just like infinite. So if there was a caustic barrel anywhere near you, or a caustic like in a building, they were just invincible. And the problem is, in pubs that doesn't really matter, in casual play or in low level ranked that doesn't really matter. But in high level competitive play, when you have caustic gas existing or a team existing in a building, they're just invincible. Like there's literally nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, counterplay is a huge thing that pros want, and I don't know if...
Oh, for sure. I feel like personally, my take on Caustic is like, I mean, he's very strong at that one thing, but if he can't, you can't bring him into a building in the end game, he's kind of a sitting duck. I mean, he does have some use in outdoors, but...
And what's wild is, like, you say that, right? But then you look at the last 2 biggest tournaments in Apex history, ALGS Champs and Playoffs, which were multi-million-dollar tourneys, and the team that won was Caustic on both tourneys, and they were Caustic Givey, and like the majority pick of both of those tourneys were Caustic, and that was after the barrel change, right? I'm pretty sure that was after the fact that you could break the barrels.
Yeah, that must have been, for sure. But that was okay. Now we're talking about that you can break the barrels when they're popped. The health. So they have 150
were you talking about when you could break the barrels like without when they're popped?
Yeah, that's the one I was referring to begin with.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing in the past.
Really?
Yeah,
I literally...
Could you never, like before, like originally, could you not destroy barrels at all?
Yeah.
Wow, actually, I just forgot about that. That was so long ago. But to be honest, Caustic was
actually,
horrible.
yeah, I think it must have been the one you're talking about. Now I think about it, it makes more sense. Or it's like in between, because I do think the change where barrels have health, that must have been like in the last. That must have been a 2022 change.
That was kind of recent, yeah.
Yeah, and the thread I found was in the 2021. To be honest, at this point, I think people just kind of say that everything is the pro's fault. So like it doesn't really matter, I think.
Yeah.
Which change they're talking about.
You know what's really funny is Caustic was so bad for so long, right? Like he was never meta. He was really, really bad. And I remember I actually suggested that they should make it so your teammates don't get slowed by the gas. Like that was a thing where your teammates would get slowed by the gas. Yeah. And they did it, and immediately Caustic like instantly like became meta, and I was like, why did I suggest that? It was such a bad idea. Why did I like that? Was literally like a moment of like pros ruining Apex, but like then
I guess we're done then. Okay, podcast done.
But then if I asked for like that to be nerfed, and then I'm rooting Apex again, so it's like I'm double rooting Apex. Like you can't win, right?
Pros are rug pulling Apex.
Yeah, I don't know if they did that change because of like my suggestion. They probably wasn't, but like that was like one of the things I said. I was like, they should make it so like people like teammates can run through gas. It's like such a grief to have a Caustic on your team. I'm sure that was like the general consensus before as well. So.
Yeah, no, I think everyone agreed with that. Like it's a double-edged sword. But what would you? So you're saying you suggested to Respawn? Are you saying that you as a pro you have like a separate channel you can talk to Respawn, or are they reading your tweets or?
So, I mean, devs do definitely read my tweets a lot, but I actually back in 2019, I believe. Yeah, back in 2019, I actually like approached devs and like talked to them in private, and I made this huge document that had a list of like probably 100 to 200 issues with Apex that I saw, and it had the reasons why there are issues on there, and it had also my suggested solutions, like a lot of things. And actually, I updated this for a couple of years, and they had access to this, and they looked over it, and a couple of things were changed, and I would keep note of like things that were changed for a while, and like one of them was like golden knockdown self revive. That took a long time. That was more recent that they changed. Other things were a very specific change was Bloodhound and Octane, the FOV ability setting.
Mm-hmm.
So like those characters, when you used to pop Bloodhound ult, it would actually change your FOV, and a lot of people don't realize this, but that changes your sensitivity in game. So when you're popping ult with Bloodhound, you would literally have a different sensitivity, which is horrible. You don't want that. So they actually added a setting in game where you could disable that change, and it would keep your FOV the same. So like that was something. And then another minor detail that people probably forgot about was you used to not be able to see kill feed when you were dead, spectating your teammates, and that was another thing they added to the game through a suggestion of mine. So
that's
pretty
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the sheet in front of me as well, so definitely I can see a lot of the changes that have been made. These are mostly good changes, I'd assume.
Yeah,
just skimming
for
through
the
it.
most part, I mean, to be honest, like scrolling through it, I don't really see any that casuals would hate, other than maybe the golden knockdown change or like Kraber change. Another huge thing was like the golden backpack. So that was, I believe, so it's changed now, but it used to be when you revive someone, they would come back at like half health. And my gripe with that was that you didn't know if someone had a golden backpack. So when they were reviving someone, you didn't know if the guy that you were about to shoot was going to have 10 health or if he was going to have 140 health. And at a competitive standpoint, that's so bad, because that difference is like, it's your decision making changes so much, right? So they actually,
Absolutely.
so they made it so they added a visual indicator, and they also added an audio indicator of someone when they're using a golden backpack, so you could like make better decision making based on that information.
You're making me feel like a noob. What was the visual one? I know the audio, it sounds different, but what's the visual?
The visual one is like there's like lightning around. There's like red lightning strikes whenever you're reviving someone. You could probably maybe throw in like a little clip of that or something. It's, you can see it in the fire.
Yeah, well, I hope my editor sees this. You put it right there somewhere.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't know that. And now that's been changed to the knockdown as well. I think, what do you think about that change? Like, completely going off topic here, but I personally think that was such a smart way of removing the golden knockdown.
Yeah, so I guess so they knew they wanted to get rid of self revive, right? Just because it was like such a huge problem in the game for competitive. And I'm assuming that they felt limited to their options for a change on the knockdown shield specifically. So I'm assuming that they just scrapped the self revive and then took the golden backpack ability, threw it on the knockdown, and then they changed the golden backpack because maybe it just felt like they had a better change that they could do to the game. And I think that overall casuals probably hated that, and they look at the golden backpack as like a really boring golden item. And I don't really disagree, but the golden backpack is honestly really, really good because it allows you to have extra, it basically gives you extra inventory space to hold more useful items, like more grenades or more ultic cells or more. It's really valuable when you look at it. But I do agree that it is a kind of like boring golden item in comparison to the others. Like, I don't go crazy when I pick it up.
Yeah, we've seen some golden items. If the first one that comes to mind would be like the old golden armor. You remember that before finishers restored your shields?
Yeah.
That was the passive for that.
Yeah. And that was such a good change that they did. They just scrapped that from the gold item, put it in the game as default for everyone. I really like that.
Was that fast? Wait, no. So I know there was you got twice the healing for cells. But was there fast healing in between as well, or am I misremembering right now?
I think there was fast healing on golden armor. And then
must have been for like a short amount of time. Yeah,
I think it was a kind of shorter, like in Apex lifespan. I think it was relatively short. And then they ended up going with the double cell, double syringe change. But I think that was when they also took away fast healing from Lifeline.
Yeah, it was on the backpack first, right? That's what I'm trying to think if they did this. So what they're doing now, where they're kind of like shifting all of the passives one step. I'm just trying to think maybe they did that in the past as well. I'd have to look at the wiki to know for sure, but
yeah, I wonder if they'll continue to change the gold items around. Like, if you think about it, like gold helmet is actually just like, I think that's like one of the most broken items in the game. Like, gold helmet
for sure
is so ridiculously strong. Like, one, because you don't really know if someone has a gold helmet unless you hit them in the head randomly. Like, the cooldown change, it's like, I believe it's a 25% reduction.
I thought it was 10%. I'm gonna look this up right now.
It's
I can't.
More than 10.
Misinformation here.
It might be 20. It's 20 or 25. It is definitely more than 10. But it's insane. Like, that is such a crazy reduction.
20. Oh, I did not know that. I thought it was 10 the whole time.
Yeah. So if you and what's crazy about it is that it's a percentage reduction. So the bigger cooldown you have, the larger it works. So if you have like a 5-minute ult, like that, like cuts it out like a minute and a half. Like, it's insane. Like, it's such
and in some metas you have I'm thinking like Bloodhound meta. If everyone runs a Bloodhound,
Yeah.
you're gonna have scan advantage all the time with a golden helmet.
If you have gold helmet, you're gonna have huge, crazy advantages. Or like seer meta right now, your seer is gonna be able to cancel before the other seer. Yeah, it's actually kind of nuts.
All right, so you hear it here first. If they end up changing the helmet, that goes back on the list. Another thing pros have been ruining.
I guess we should probably talk about the rank system maybe now.
Yeah, I was gonna go into that as well. I think that is something I've seen even more complaints about, and I guess it's like every casual probably felt that in season 13. It was 13, right? PvP.
Yep, season 13.
Yeah, the rework. We got the ranked reworked. It's called something else. And there were a lot of changes. Reloaded, that's the one, thank you. And they brought in PVP. And they brought in a few more. Was a girl there? That's the one name I think sort of stood out. A few grinders, at least.
Yeah, I believe girl was there. There was quite a few content creators, some other pros. Basically, it was like a meeting where they told us what they were doing. It wasn't really a meeting where we told them what to do. That's basically the best way to put it. But they had already been like actively listening to feedback for a while. So it
was more like a press release meeting, sort of like you're sitting there and they have a presentation for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. But I had already talked to like the rank dev for 8 months before season 13. Which how many seasons is that? Like 2.5 or something? The season I believe is
about 3 months.
3 months.
Usually.
So yeah, it's about like 2.5. Maybe three seasons before that. I remember talking to him and he's like, yeah, well, if we change the system, it'll probably be like 200 days from now. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, holy shit, like what? So then the day finally came and they changed the system and it wasn't exactly what I wanted. It wasn't exactly what I asked for. It wasn't exactly what like a lot of pros wanted, but it had the idea and it was still like, in my opinion, infinitely better than what it is now. But the big problem, the number one problem, was that they didn't separate the system from high levels compared to low levels. So that rank system, although it was insanely good at high ranks, like everyone loved it for the most part.
Yeah.
It at lower ranks, people hated it. So when you have a general consensus of the player base that hates it, how like take 2 weeks for them to scrap the whole idea?
I don't know, probably something like that.
Actually, so this is exactly what happened. Rank system released, they double reset everyone back ranks, like extra ranks.
Yeah.
And then what happened is all the pros ranked up really fast. And after like 2 days, since the pros were in Pred, they couldn't get games because people weren't ranked up fast enough. So they opened up the matchmaking to include golds in Pred lobbies because gold players at the time weren't really gold players. It was just like masters that were reset back, right?
Yeah.
And the issue is they never switched that matchmaking change back to normal.
They never closed it.
Yeah, they never closed it again. So for the next 90 days, it was Preds farming golds. And that's
absolutely crazy.
That's why the rank system, in my opinion, like completely failed. Because it was just Preds. No one enjoyed that. Preds don't want to farm golds. And I actually saw a lot of Reddit comments that were saying like, oh, pros just want a rank system where they can farm golds and get content. And I'm just like, bro, this is not what we want. We want to play against other good players. We want longer queue times. We want harder games, more competitive, more end zones. We don't want to play against gold players. It's the exact opposite.
So to be fair, there were some, but
there were some.
Who was it? There's a Mazer moment. I remember him talking about that. That was passed around a lot, actually. I don't know if you caught that clip at all. Maybe it doesn't matter too much.
I think
but he was basically saying something along the line. Yeah, but I think also we've seen this before where they open the queues. The first thing that comes to mind, or the first time, was when we got the new rank. I'm going all the way back. We're looking 2 years, baby. Like, time traveling. Sentinels is going for number 1 Pred. They're going to be the first team to get Pred. They get Diamond. And the queues are dead. Nobody is there. And they start talking about it. They're like, this is a problem. We're sitting here waiting. And then they open the queues. I don't know if maybe they do it every season. I have no idea.
You know what happened again this season, right? For the first 2 days, everyone that hit Diamond 3 couldn't get games on NA. So then everyone had, like, all the high ranked players had to consolidate onto one region. So everyone went to EU for the most part. And the issue is when you have every pro and every streamer on the same server, that's when the cheaters start coming out and the DDoSers start coming out. So
right,
like ranked was just ruined for like 2 days straight. And I'm pretty sure they opened up the queues, and now NA is working because they opened up the queues. And I just don't understand, like, why don't I even DM'd the BR dev about this. I was like, why don't you guys open up the queues for like the first 5 days and then close them back afterwards when there's enough players to actually support a queue system, like a matchmaking system?
Yeah, that makes sense. And did you get an answer, or?
I have not got an answer.
Okay. I mean, they might have their own reasoning for it then, probably. Yeah. But that's absolutely crazy. I've always said that it's the matchmaking. The matchmaking is at fault, which I guess to a certain degree, you can make the argument it is. But if there's an actual like floodgates setting, there's a big red button that they just press, then then maybe we've all been looking at it wrong at the end of the day. Because I agree, like when I saw the changes for ranked, I felt like this is really, really good. Like objectively looking at this is really good if people are put against others at the same skill level. But they aren't, so it didn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so after season 13, when they had that rank system, that was actually like really good. I think season 14, they went like the complete opposite direction. They scrapped like the whole idea. They uncapped the KP and they made the KP full value per kill. So now ranked is like the wild west. Like lobbies are just like dead, and you like there's games that end by zone 3. There's no end games. It's just third party.
It's pub stomping.
Yeah, for essentially.
Yeah.
It is not fun at all in high level play. Fortunately, Apex is just an amazing game in itself, which is carrying the weight. But the rank system right now is just, oh my god, it's dreadful.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up something here, and let's see if I remember exactly which one it was. I'm gonna pull up my Okay, hold on.
What I was gonna say.
What's the name? Rickelsar. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Oh, Rickelsar. One last thing I wanted to say on that was, my suggested change that they should do is that they should do a dynamic KP cap system. And for the people that don't understand, like what that means is the higher rank you are, the more limiting the kill cap is. So, for example, these aren't like perfect numbers, but like if you're pred, your kill cap would be 5 or 6. If you're diamond, your kill cap would be 6 or 7. If you're gold, your kill cap would be 8 or 9. If you're silver, your kill cap would be like 10. And if you're bronze, then your kill cap would be unlimited. And this would be so good because in the high level, there would be more competitive games. There would actually be end games because people wouldn't just be aping into red zone looking for random kills. And in the lower ranks, then people who are good, who are like farming, they can climb quicker. And, you know, it's like normal, right? Like you just like, you get a lot of value for your kills in lower ranks. And that seems to be like what the general consensus is of casuals and ranked, is that they don't want like people quote unquote camping, even though it's not really a thing. They don't want people camping, and they don't want their kills like not valuable. Yeah, I think that's like the best change that they could do in the game right now is adding a dynamic KP system.
And you're saying that instead of the floodgates feature being, I guess, reworked or like in tandem with that?
I think they could do the exact system they have now, do a dynamic KP cap system, and then they have to look at the numbers for how much RP preds lose per queue. Because right now they have like a system where like if you're every 1,000 RP you gain, you lose 5 extra or 10 extra every time you queue. So like once you're like maxed out, you're like every time you queue a game, you're like negative 125, right? They'll probably have to lower that. They'll probably have to lower that. So, because I think you would like at some point you would literally just like lose RP for winning a game, which is actually possible right now.
Yeah. So in short, to summarize, ranked was not, or pros were vocal that ranked needed changes. Respawn took that in consideration. They made their own version of ranked. They brought in pros, including PvP, and had them like they showed the changes. There wasn't much of a back and forth. It was more of a presentation than a meeting. And then now they or 2 weeks or so after they made this huge change to ranked that the casuals didn't really like at all. They went back on that, and now we have pub stomping level ranked, and it's even worse than before.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so then we can move on because I saw this from Rickle Saucer, and I just got I just went off my memory here. I don't know if you saw this thread. He was talking about matchmaking.
You're gonna have to read that one to me because I don't recall.
Okay, he said, well, it's a whole thread. So I'll link it as well. But basically, he said matchmaking is a combination of three things: progression system, matching algorithm, and a skill rating. And then it goes like a little bit more in depth. I'll send it to you here.
Oh, okay, I think I did briefly see that.
Yeah, I think he kind of didn't mention a few points. The one thing that stood out to me, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, if you've noticed also, I guess. And it's something I've noticed. He says in the final message or the final tweet in this thread, he says that the skill rating, or the way I interpret it, is that the skill rating is the same. The system for the skill rating, is the same in pubs and ranked. It's just that the incentive is different. So if you're playing to win or playing silly is the word that he used.
I feel like the matchmaking system in pubs is actually more like complex and dynamic than it is in ranked. And ranked
it's possible.
In ranked is literally just your number. Like it's like that simple. Like if you're a masters, you're queuing up against other masters. That's it. There's no like your level of your account does not matter. Your KD does not matter. Your stats do not matter. If you're solo, it does not matter. If you're grouped, it does not matter. Like that's it. Maybe it changes if you're like lower rank, like gold or silver. But in the higher ranks, that it's just that simple, which is the problem. And like a huge issue I noticed specifically this split is that if you are Diamond 3, which I believe is 11,300 RP, it was not matching players up against you that were Diamond 4, 11,299 RP. And that just blows my mind because like that's a difference of 1 RP between those players, and the matchmaking system won't match them together just because they have a D3 versus D4. And if you really look at it, like the diamond, gold, plat, none of that really matters. It's just a picture. And there's actually like behind the scenes, there's a global ranking leaderboard, like 1 to 1 million, right? And everyone is on that leaderboard, that invisible leaderboard. Why is that not like the basis of how people get matched up against each other?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like
it seems very random,
right? Because you could be like rank like 100,000, you'd be D3, and the next guy would be rank 100,001, and he'd be D4, and he'd be 1 less RP than you. And those two players,
they'd be in plat lobbies.
Those two players can't get matched together. Like what? How does that make any sense?
Yeah, the consequence of what you're describing, because I think just to make it a little bit clear, the person who's over Diamond 3, they have their own lobbies. They're in Predator lobbies. They get pulled into Predator lobbies.
Yes.
And anyone who's below, they're like in Platinum lobbies. So I just wanted to clarify that as well.
Yeah. And that's not always
like that's been like that for a while.
Yeah, it's not always a bad thing that it's like that, but I think that is what I'm trying to point out is the issue of that being a thing in the first like 5 days of a ranked reset. Because that means people who get high rank literally can't play the game unless they play on Sao Paulo servers, which is people don't know about that. The general public doesn't know about that one.
It seems to be like once you get past a certain point, it's like the apex iceberg.
Yeah,
it's pretty far down there about Sao Paulo servers.
Yeah.
I was trying to think then if we're gonna move on about as we've talked a little bit about pros input and how it's affected the game, and you're not a casual, so this might be hard, but maybe you've heard something. Are there any features that you know of that have been inspired from casual input? Because I personally, from what I've seen personally, is that when there is input from the casuals, from Reddit or something, it's almost like Respawn tries not to implement that.
I could be wrong, but didn't they remove Lifeline's shield because of casuals? Because I never saw a single pro player or high-level competitive player complaining about that.
I'm Googling. I started with Reddit Lifeline Shield.
the Lifeline Revive Shield. I swear, I have never, ever talked to a single pro player, a single high-level pro, anything. Never saw any pros tweeting about it. No one ever complained about the Lifeline Revive Shield. And then they just randomly one day they just got rid of it. And I remember like Reddit complaining about it a lot
Yeah.
when that was a thing. So I feel like that is the thing where like casuals complained and they got rid of it because of casuals.
Yeah, I'm
But
actually looking at it now. It does seem like it. I mean, personally, I think it was a good change. It was a bit of a problem. Very abusable. At least like the first
yeah,
iteration of the shield.
I just know I see a lot of Reddit comments nowadays about how people want it back. You know what I mean? They want
Yeah.
that. So
I think we have, speaking of that, because I'm just literally, I'm digging into my memories right now. I think there were complaints about Wraith's hitbox. Like, basically, I think if we look at it like this, if it hurts the sweats, then it was a casual suggestion, usually. So, I think Wraith, I want to say she got a hitbox change. I think Pathfinder's gone back and forth. That seems to be both input from both sides. I can't think of any others right now, no. But I think... Go on, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was literally just trying to fill that air, so you go.
I was just gonna say it. I have like a lot of mixed feedback that could like contradict a lot of pros' thoughts as well. I think the Wraith hitbox change was really good. I think a lot of pros were like super upset that happened. Like a lot of like, you know, pub stompers, sweats or whatever. I do think that was really good. One major thing that you could even see it in the doc that I made in 2019. I talked about how Apex Legends, they needed to try to get the hitboxes of every single character to be way closer together. And huge things that I talked about was actually reworking Fortify Legends like Gibby and Caustic and literally making them smaller, because I think that there was like a huge issue with balancing between abilities on Fortify characters because their hitboxes are so big. And I think that also in casual play, which is like, you know, pubs, low level ranks, I think characters like Gibraltar see almost zero play and are really bad because of the hitbox. It's not because of the abilities. The abilities on those characters are insane. It's some of the best abilities in the game, but it's because of the hitbox. Because when you're in a zipline building and you're fighting a Wraith with a small hitbox and you're a huge character, you're getting hit by every bullet. And anyone looking at you, you're getting hit no matter what.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the things I wanted a lot was hitbox change across the board.
Yeah, I think I probably would agree with that at the time, and I probably would now as well.
And then they came out with
that is
Newcastle.
probably something casuals wouldn't like that much, honestly.
Yeah.
I do think, though, when it comes to casual input, I'd say, like, yeah, Reddit complains a lot about things, but as we know, after Iron Crown, I don't think Respawn goes there anymore. But I do think that they have the stats. I think that's probably, like, I do see a lot of people going, oh, you're not listening to casuals, you're listening to the pros, you're listening to the content creators. Well, like, it's... If I put myself in Respawn's shoes, I can go to a pro and be like, hello, it's me from Respawn. What do you think about this? I know that the pro knows what they're talking about because I've grinded the game a lot. Obviously, I have my own data and everything. Like, I have to... Like, there's going to be a personal bias. You can't get around that. But it's not like I can just go and ask a casual player. I can't just survey a random casual player and go, hey, Bobby, what do you think about this change?
Right. Like
what they do have is they have a plethora of data. I mean, they've done a lot of events, actually, as well, where they've been trying features that come into the game. That's a video I'm working on right now. That, like, almost every event would introduce, like, a weird, quirky mechanic, almost always makes it into the game later on. So they're trying out the things on the casuals. They just don't ask you about it, which, again, in the first place, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, like, how do you separate the casuals? Because Respawn could have a meeting and they could invite 10 pros, right? Which is 10 pros is a pretty large number because there's not that many pros. But then Respawn could have a meeting and they could invite 10 casuals, and that number relative to the number of casuals is literally nothing. And that could have happened in the past, but no one would know about it because there's 3 million casuals, and all those 3 million people would be complaining like, why don't they listen to us? When they could have literally had a meeting where they took 10 casuals and had to, talk to them about it. So, like, in general, when they take feedback from the casual base, it's a lot of it is through data. A lot of it is through, I think viral posts on Reddit actually do have an impact for sure, even though people say they don't. But, like, the problem is, how many viral posts can you have about cross progression? Like, Respawn knows. And I'm sure that there is just the logistics behind that. There's probably some problem on their end where that's not a thing yet. Whatever. You know what I mean? It's not like they haven't heard people's thoughts on that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, same with audio. That's like
Yeah.
loud and clear across the aisle. Like both sides want it fixed, but
everyone wants that fixed. Yeah, right.
I'm pretty sure Respawn wants it fixed. You
know?
My
my take on audio is like, why don't they do the little things? Like, I understand like maybe they can't fix audio across the board, but why don't they give us like an ambient noise volume slider? Why don't they make it so you can turn off teammates' footsteps? Like every little tiny thing they do could really help in the long run.
Yeah.
And I can't comprehend why they haven't done that yet.
You have that just reminded me. Have you played on the new Pro client? Because I know that's rolling out. There's like a few different features. You have access to some things. You've opened it.
I have it downloaded and I have opened it, but I have not played in it. I don't know if there's like anything drastically different, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, you have access to all the skins. Is what someone told me.
Okay, I actually haven't looked.
I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I've heard. So at least you have the client. But so I heard that it would be different, but you don't happen to know anything that's different than with the Pro client.
So I think the reason why they came out with the Pro client is because it has the ability of playing on previous patches. So if they update the game, let's say like season 15 dropped and it just like broke customs, because that happened for 2 months before ALGS Champs, like a $5 million tournament. We couldn't even scrim for 2 months before the biggest tournament in Apex history because the update broke customs. I think that really triggered them to like have to come out with this Pro client, because if the game does get broken, they can do a previous patch on that and the game can be played successfully without having to revert the entire game on the current update. Yeah, so I think that's why they did that. And also, yeah, in the future, it's definitely going to be interesting if they do add some like other features on there. But to my knowledge, I don't think there is any other features on there compared to the regular game.
Okay, I remember seeing a thread from Garrett, and that was just based on a different. I think it was an article that was speculating that would be like optimization or audio differences or something. But
no, I don't believe so.
Okay, we'll see. Maybe in the future.
Do you know they did just come out with that DX12 beta thing? I don't know anything about that, but I've been trying it. I don't know if you tried that or not.
I have not.
I think it's something about. Apparently, it increases your FPS like a lot, but it has like varied results. It's in beta right now, and if you want to try it, it's on Steam on PC. You just add like a launch command, and apparently it gives you like way better FPS.
I should try it. I have a very good PC to begin with, but it does have issues, so maybe that's what's missing, the DX12. Yeah. But I've heard a lot of weird bugs, and it's darker, and like sometimes UI elements is missing. So personally, I was just thinking of waiting until it comes out of beta. But
I tried it yesterday, and it didn't seem like anything went bad. But I don't know. I'm not like super like techie or like noticeable about like FPS changes or anything like that. So
right. No, I get like these micro stutters lately. It's killing me. But other than that, it's usually fine. Yes. So then let's see. We've kind of like jumped all over the place a little bit, talking about changes from pros. But I just like to return to that real quick to put a nice, I guess, bow on the whole thing, or continue after that bow, which is changes from pros. Like, what changes have we gotten that are good? So we mentioned it briefly from your spreadsheet that there were a lot of changes that you personally suggested that seem to have impacted Respawn to make the changes. I don't know if there's anything that jumps out at you.
So, I mean, things that I love were the Octane and Revenant changes, but I don't know how about the casuals think about that one.
That's yeah. At the end of the day, that's a good point.
So they added audio to the Octane jump pad, and they also added Revenant. They added like a visual indicator when the ultimate is used. Because that ultimate was just like no audio at all, and especially when you combine that with Octane pad that also had no audio, that was just ridiculous. Like that was a thing for way too long, and I'm happy they changed that.
I would imagine that the golden backpack change that you suggested must have been, honestly, as well. But yeah, I would imagine that the average casual is happy that Rev Octane got nerfed, or like lack of a better word. They did get nerfed, but like this is some outplayability.
Yeah, there's
maybe not the Octane and Revenant mains. They might be a bit pissy about it, but other than that,
we got the end game circles changed, and I feel like casuals wouldn't hate that, right? You know how because
now it closes and it slows down.
Yeah, it closes like a lot slower than it used to. It used to just like close really fast into a miniature circle, and yeah, that was another change that was done. There's so many
There
things
was
over the
the
years.
yeah, exactly. It's all these small things. It's so hard to keep up with. But I remember one of the reasons I did end up reaching out to you was I remember you tweeted. Now I'd argue it doesn't age well, seeing as how season 15 has been received. But I think it was season 13 or 14. You tweeted out and said, despite everyone claiming that the game is dying, the game has we hit a new player peak that one season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Apex. I mean, I guess season 15 might not be the best comparison for that anymore because I feel like the Apex has been down bad lately. But
Yeah.
up until season like 13, 14, I feel like the game every season was just getting better and better and better and bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, anyone that says like, "Oh, take me back to season 3 or season 4," that's just straight nostalgia talking. Because like, look back and think about all the changes we don't have, or we wouldn't have. Like, we wouldn't have crafting, we wouldn't have red armor, we wouldn't have the ability to upgrade Evo shields. We wouldn't have like honestly the best gun balance in Apex history right now. There's so many different viable guns.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people hate the certain legends that are meta right now, but there's no such thing as a perfect legend meta. And
No.
as long as they just don't keep it the same for too long, that makes me happy.
Yeah, you also have, I think, kind of what we're gathering here is that it's really hard to say whether it's from the pros or the casuals who just respawn themselves at the end of the day. I think they just, personally, from what I feel from hearing from you and all the information in front of me, right, is that the game doesn't get heavily impacted from pros or from casuals. I feel more that Respawn kind of, they must be taking both into account. Sometimes they probably just go their own way. They don't factor in anything, and they think, this is the best thing. This is what we're gonna do. Doesn't matter what they say.
I mean, if they only listen to pros, then
yeah.
I mean, they would have done so much more to this game. I'd be done. I'd run out of things to complain about. I know one huge thing that casuals would love that I tweeted was the suggestion for all the different game modes that I did probably like 5 months ago, maybe, where it was like they should have like an arcade mode in Apex. They should have like I don't know if you saw that or not.
I might have missed it.
Okay, so it's basically you know how the current Apex Legends menu is like you can queue up trios, duos, and you can queue up arenas, and you can queue up ranked.
Yes.
My idea was that they should add a new mode in there called arcade, where it's like a rotational timer between different modes like TDM, control, and what's the other one? There's another one. Like solos. They could throw solos in there as well. And then also adding customs, so you can have like custom game modes for doing like hide and seek, like fun game modes. And another thing was adding the ability to queue into game modes while you're waiting in queues for ranked, which might not be the biggest problem for lower ranks because I think queues are pretty fast, but in high ranks that'd be sick.
It would also allow Respawn to make that choice that, you know, keep the floodgates closed, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if they notice something that players can do while the queue times are longer, then they might be more inclined to.
They could make matchmaking a
longer.
lot. Matchmaking would be like way better if you could like occupy people while they're in queue. Because I know I think that's a big thing right now with Respawn is they want the queues to go quick because it's probably better for player retention.
Yeah,
which is like a data metric for them.
Player retention and stickiness, those are huge. I would imagine. I remember seeing an article about solos, same thing. I think they said it hurt player retention a lot. I know that mobile has solos, but I think mobile has. It's a bit different. I think retention in general is just super low in mobile to begin with.
Yeah, I think mobile games, they don't really care about that as much. It's more about milking like the product because the lifespan is probably lower on those type of games.
Yeah, exactly. So then we have that. But then I'm trying to think. So as I mentioned, Respawn does do things. Sometimes they just like, you know, they put their head down, ignore input from pros, ignore input from casuals. I'm trying to think anything you would potentially remember where you suggested something or you gave input on something and they were like, ah, thank you, and then just went the complete opposite way.
The the zone change, like them like closing the red zone quicker. My suggestion for that was in pubs they should do it dynamic based on how many people are alive. That way it would make pub games a little faster, a little bit more fun, less running around. But in ranked,
oh, like that one LTM that we didn't get the killing time.
Yeah. Did they not do that?
No, they didn't do that. I think they were supposed to do 7 events that one. They were supposed to do 7 LTMs. They did 4.
Oh yeah.
Or 3, something like that.
Yeah, there was also I really want them to do an experimental mode. I know Overwatch has that where they would just like do like changes that to test, and it would be like a game mode that you queue up to test those changes publicly. I think that would help Apex a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean they have playlist takeovers right now, which is the closest. Like if they want to get that on something. But the last one, again, I worked on the event video just a few days ago. I'm pretty sure it's done. It's gonna air on my channel. But it has. What I noticed was the last time they did one of these experiments was like mid-21.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Like that.
Yeah.
I think they did both. Like normally they combine it with like another event, but if I'm talking strictly just changing the playlist, nothing else. It was 21, both of them.
I feel like in that time period, they had like a huge like direction change on how they wanted to go about the game. So they were more open-minded about how they wanted to handle things. But I think nowadays Respawn like they have like their structure that they want, and they like know how they want the game to be managed. And I actually feel like lately they've been listening less and less to like everyone, like pros and casuals.
Yeah.
Like, especially with these season 15 patch notes, like, my god, that was so bad. Like, the new map, amazing. I absolutely love it. But, like, they had, like, no legend changes. They had almost no gun changes. There was no new gun. There was no new game modes. There was no, like, there's barely any fixes to bugs. It was, I was not very happy with the season 15 patch notes. I'm not going to lie.
I had this theory, and... You can tell me I'm wrong here or not. I've been saying this a lot, and people seem to think it makes sense. Because I know we saw, when they showcased Broken Moon, there were like a few changes. We had like with the loot bins, there was Pathfinder Zipline, had like a cool UI thing going on. And something else. I don't remember exactly what it was. But the point is there were changes. None of these were in the patch notes. It didn't actually hit Season 15.
Yep.
So what some people have theorized is that, especially with ALGS being right around the corner, maybe they just waited with that to maybe like a collection event or just a later patch down the line. Do you think there's some plausibility to that? Or
I would normally agree, but they came out with the ALGS build that can play on a previous patch. So that's the part where I don't understand. And then you could be like, oh, well, they don't want pros practicing the game in like the normal rank game that isn't on the current ALGS system. But like, that's not really true either, because we have no way of even playing Stormpoint or World's Edge, and the rank system is not even good practice at all. So like I remember I got together with my team yesterday, and we didn't even have a custom code. We couldn't even go into custom to like practice a loot pattern for our POI. Like that's how limiting like pros are for like being able to practice the game.
So the pro... Is that new then? Because I thought you always had access once you hit Pro League.
So they would. The way it works is every Pro League they give you like a couple of codes, but then when Pro League is done, those codes expire. So we just went probably like 3 months without having any access to customs.
Oh, that's crazy.
After champs, yeah, and before that, 2 months before champs, there was no customs because they broke the game and customs didn't work. Like the lobbies would crash every game.
So that's almost half a year of no customs at all.
Essentially,
I mean, to be fair, there were like public scrims. I don't know how much NA does those, but in EU have them.
Yeah, you could do tournament organizers get access to codes so they could host tournaments, and you could do scrims. But scrims weren't really a thing because the 2 months before champs they were broken. Then after champs there was no tournaments. Like, why are you scrimming? There's no tournaments, and the season 15 was right around the corner. There's supposed to be like a big change, but really the game didn't really change that much. Scrims weren't really a thing. Lately, scrims have been kind of coming around. There's been the oversight tournament, which has been huge. So that's kind of how NA and specifically looks at scrims, as they play these like minor tourneys. Yeah, it's still just unfortunate. Like you can't, as a pro in this game, you can't go into a custom and run around your POI and like learn different climbs or like learn loop patterns or you know what I mean. Like it's just strange that.
Yeah, I remember when they tried customs for the first time. I was there, and I didn't record it. I probably should have, because I remember they said some things. Were you there the first time they tried customs?
I was not. I don't ever.
Okay.
I don't ever get invited to playtests or anything.
That wasn't a playtest. That was like I wasn't in playtesting.
Oh, it was like it was just like the first time someone got access to customs or something.
Yeah, something like that. Like Respawn themselves were hosting something. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
Shaheen was there, and
they were just trying to stress test the servers. I bet.
Yeah, something like that. But I remember them mentioning, because people were asking like, "Are we gonna get our own customs access?" This must have been 2.5 years ago or something, you know.
Yeah.
And they were literally saying something that they didn't want players to find out. I don't know what it was. They didn't want players to find out.
Yeah,
but they didn't want that.
There was a huge meeting at the beginning of customs when they came out about how you should not leak the code. Do not leak the code, because I don't think they had like the ability to like close those servers or something. I don't remember like what exactly that was about, but I remember someone accidentally leaked the code and they got like it was like a huge deal that like they leaked that code for the custom, and it was like they got so mad. Like Respawn was pissed that one person leaked the code on accident. And now you have like,
it happens so easily too, because at the start, I don't know if anyone watching knows this, but like when you want to join a custom, there's like a bunch of, you have to type in a code, and if you have the code, you can join. That has asterisks. Like if you fill in a password on a website, it's censored. But at the start, there wasn't anything.
Yeah.
It was just open. It was just open text field.
You have like Hal, where he's like a 25,000 average viewer streamer, and he only uses one monitor on his fucking PC. So like every time he opens Discord, it's just right there. Dude, he is so dumb.
I mean, it didn't have to be Discord either. Like you had when you type it in, like anyone who was streaming had to change their scenes and do like a whole dance and song just to actually not leak the code, because it was that big of a deal. That's crazy.
He would find a way.
that was a good old days. But let's see then. So, if you're gonna be a bit humble, PvP, can you think of any things that pros did ruin? And now you have to put yourself in the shoes of the casual, I think.
Let's see. Guns, Kraber, items.
But you think, okay, so you think that you'd say that the pros ruined the Kraber?
I mean, the Kraber's still like ridiculously strong, and you're always picking it up. But I think relative to what casuals think, their opinion, I think pros definitely did ruin the Kraber for them. Same thing with Golden Knockdown. Like I'm super happy with that change, but like from a casual perspective, from them having like fun in pubs or low level ranked with Golden Knockdown, I think pros definitely did ruin that for them. For ranked system, definitely not. Any game modes, no. Any new content that's been added to the game, no. I think that's my opinion on that one. I mean, Legends, like, what Legend has been changed for the worse because of pros?
We can probably think of something if we just give it a second.
I mean,
I know Gibraltar got like.
The problem
it's not
is
as oppressive, but I don't think it got like ruined.
Like those legends are just bound to get changed anyways, so it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think the one problem I did with this podcast, I realized this now. I'm talking to you. I'm like, you can give your input as like a pro coach with that like lens, but I don't have a casual. I don't know where I would find a casual out of the millions who would represent all of them. But I don't have a casual to be there with counterpoints. I did realize that now.
Yeah, right.
But I do think I think we kind of try to approach it still at a more or less objective angle, I guess. And I think it's good also, like you said, that you can see how it ruins enjoyment for casuals with the knockdown. It ruins enjoyment with some of the changes that pros have wanted.
Just wait till I get them to nerf aim assist. Ooh, man.
oh.
That's gonna be a good day.
Keep it till the end. Oh man, that's gonna be rough. I feel like something's on the way there, but I don't know what's happening. There's been talks about it.
I think Respawn is scared to nerf aim assist.
Honestly,
I think they want to, and they know that they should, but I think they're scared. And when people, a lot of casuals, they don't understand. Like when I say nerf aim assist, I think that M&K overall definitely is better. Maybe not in the current meta, but I think what they definitely need to do is nerf aim assist. That's no question in my mind. But they need to buff controller on top of that by adding a lot
you've been
of
very
different
vocal
things.
about that.
Yeah,
I've
adding
seen
a lot
that.
of things like moving while looting, adding different keybind support so you can like reload behind knockdown shields and doors. Just a lot of little things that controller could definitely get that would help across the board. But
Like,
aim assist a little too OP.
what I'm gathering here is like you would want the skill gap to widen,
Yes,
right? Because right now
exactly.
you plug in a controller, there's like not much of a skill expression. But if you could do more things with a lower aim assist, then the good players would stand out more.
Enable controller players more, but also tweak aim assist so it's not as abusable as it is now. Because there's no like, I don't care what anyone says, aim assist is OP as fuck, but controller doesn't equal aim assist. Like controller is not OP. Aim assist is just OP. And just because aim assist is OP, that doesn't make controller OP. It's just a component of controller. So it's kind of
that's what makes it so hard to balance it too, I guess, or talk about it.
You gotta balance the power level a little bit.
Exactly. Because I noticed a lot of talks about that as well, right? Like I see that the new Modern Warfare has apparently like really bad aim assists. I wonder if I haven't played myself, so I wouldn't know. But I wonder if in the near future we might just see like that's where like we're sliding. Does that make sense? Like
hopefully
we're getting to a point where the new games come out and aim assist is stronger and stronger and stronger because like they want to tap into that massive console market.
I mean, as of recent, I think we've really entered the era of controller dominating on PC. It always used to be like COD was on console, M&K was on PC with Quake and their own COD and whatever. But now you have like cross play and like it's in every single game now. By miracle, Overwatch somehow just doesn't even care, and they don't even give aim assist to controllers.
I love that. It's so
like
fun.
Holy shit, that's actually insane to like think about it, because you like look at like Warzone and you look at Apex and you look at Halo, and like controllers on PC are just insane. Like they're so good, but then you look at Overwatch and you can't even use controller on Overwatch. Like you're actually just straight up a detrimental, like hindering your team if you're using controller.
Yeah, I mean, to clarify, you can use it. You just don't have aim assist on PC.
Yeah, you can use it.
And if you do crossplay into PC, you don't get aim assist either. They turn it off.
Yep, that's like the M and keyboard haven right now, like the safe house.
Actually, that's such a good way of saying it. I know I'm probably kind of catch flag for this, but I remember I was playing. So there's two things that bothers me a lot. So I don't like matchmaking in Apex. I play more pubs than I do play ranked.
Yeah.
As a content creator, you know.
But Apex is dominated by controller players too. There's like way more.
But I was gonna say solo queue. I solo queue a lot. I think stacking ruins the matchmaking like crazy.
Yeah.
In ranked and in pubs, and that bothers me so much. And it's really annoying to die to rotational aim assist. Like you get close enough and you just get like fried. It's hard to like explain that feeling without sounding like a crybaby. Like I'm just gonna have to say it. It doesn't feel good because you're just like, oh, I just put all my effort in and I did everything right, and this guy just wiggled his thumb.
How I kind of like to compare it is the kind of like the, you know how I talked about earlier with the golden backpack, how you didn't know if someone had a golden backpack, they were reviving, and you didn't know if that person was going to have 1 health or if they're going to have 150 health. So they added that change where like there's a visual indicator and an audio indicator, so now it's more balanced. It's kind of the same thing with M&K and controller. Like you don't know if you're going to walk around a corner into a dude who has controller aim assist and he's going to hit you for 200 because he's point blank, or if it's going to be a kid that's M&K and he's tap strafing around corners running away from you. And it's just such a strange balance dynamic between the two. I think that they should give us an LTM where it just has a huge controller floating above players that are on roller, and then it has a huge M&K
something like that,
floating above M&K players. That would actually be so funny. Like that would be sick, dude. You'd like know how to like play against the people you're playing against. If I saw if I saw a controller over someone's head, I'm not getting near them. Fuck that. Like I could be.
Yeah, imagine you're aiming at the dude and you get like a big pop up, like warning signals go off, like alarms.
They're like actual walking Terminators. Like it's so scary.
But not always. That's the thing. It's like either they miss everything or they like just It's crazy.
Yeah,
It is what it is. I don't want to piss any viewers off by talking about this.
It's the good roller players that know how to use their input, because like you can't just pick up controller and become a god. But it's the good ones that know how to use their input. They're like demons, dude. They're so good.
It very much do be like that. I'm glad we took this discussion or had this discussion at the very end.
Yeah.
So if anyone watched for this long, then we've kind of worked our way up into it.
Right.
So they've opened their mind a little bit, hopefully. Obviously, I'll hopefully see some comments about this or any of the other topics. Again, I'm aware it's been a little bit biased, this discussion. Obviously, again, because I'm like... I mentioned this when I was talking to Garrett, and I'm going to have to mention it now, because we did record a whole podcast session. I was telling PvP right before we went live, but it was too large, and then I accidentally deleted the recording. So it was two things that happened there. So I had to... It's gone.
Yeah. This is a good length.
But the... Was that?
I said this is a good length. Got a lot of good content here.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that what I was going to say... There's and we can probably close on this as well, is I don't think that pros ruin Apex. I think that Apex just does their own thing. They take inputs from pros. And I wanted to say that there's a spectrum. That's the word I was looking for. Where you have one side, you have the casuals, and the other side, you have the pros. And you can draw parallels to politics. I won't go that far. I'm just going to put one out there. And people will debate that however they want. So just go on. You can comment about that all you want. But there's a spectrum. And one side is pro, one is casual. And people on the casual side generally have specific takes. Like, aim assist isn't bad, or controller isn't... Or yeah, you know what I mean. Like, aim assist is bad, buff aim assist or whatever. And then pros are like nerf aim assist and fixing this and that. And ultimately they want different things, because pros find enjoyment from the competitive side of the game, I'd say. Like, pros just want to have a competitive experience. I'm not saying they want every game to be a tournament, but they don't want, generally speaking, of course, they don't want like a cheap gimmick. They don't want something you can just plug in, or something you can just do that wins you a game and there's no counterplay to that. They don't want to feel like their experience or their skill is diminished because you have to cater to that casual side. And personally, PvP, obviously... He's not all the way, actually, on I'd say, on the spectrum, on the pro side. I'd say, because like you said yourself, you had some takes that were, like, in between, right? Like, like with the hitboxes for Wraith and whatnot.
Yep.
That was a little bit more towards this casual side. I feel like I'm also somewhere in the middle. I used to be more on the pro side, and then... Oh, we didn't even mention that, and I do actually want to bring that up real quick, because pros have... this like crybaby, casuals like to call them crybabies, and that's like, I don't like that they say that, because like very often their points are valid, but the way they present it is not, and I can genuinely see why they would think that. And I feel like people on the pro side, they're so used to thinking that they're right, that they just like can't understand the other side, and they just like stomp the ground and get all pissy about it whenever they don't get their way. Like, I can genuinely see that.
That's why I just have fun with it now. My profile picture on Twitter is just an XD laughing face, and it is just the funniest thing ever. I just enjoy my life on Twitter now.
You just gotta find a way where you can piss off people on both sides of the spectrum. There you go.
Perfect.
That's where you get all the engagement farms.
Yeah, and pray for some changes along the way.
Exactly. All right. Well, it's been good having you, PvP. Thank you so much for coming on. If you want to check him out, I'll let you promote yourself.
Yep. So my socials are PVPx on Twitch and YouTube, and at PVPx_ on Twitter. Stream all the time. I'm the pro coach for C9 right now. So if you guys are liking competitive content, watching ALGS, stuff like that, tune in. And if you guys ever tune in to my stream, make sure you guys came from Otter's podcast. I'd appreciate if you come say hello.
All right, thank you so much for coming on again, PvP. And as usual, we'll be airing a new episode of this podcast every Sunday. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, you hit the follow. And if you're on Spotify, I don't know how it works. I haven't looked into it yet. We'll be there as well. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all when I see you.